I didn't realize the world had ended until the birds stopped singing. That was the first thing I noticed. Out there, deep in the bush, silence doesn't feel unnatural right away. It settles in slowly, like fog creeping through trees. You only recognize it after it's already wrapped around you. I had gone camping to get away from everything. No phone reception, no news, no people. Just me, a worn canvas tent, and a stretch of forest that felt untouched by time. I'd picked the spot carefully, 2 hours off the nearest dirt road, near a narrow creek that cut through rock and gum trees. It was the kind of place that made you feel small in the best possible way. I stayed busy the first few days, fishing, gathering wood, cooking over a small fire. Routine keeps you grounded out there. You wake with the light, sleep when it fades, and measure time by hunger instead of clocks. On the fourth morning, I woke to silence. No birds, no insects buzzing. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. I remember sitting up in my sleeping bag, listening, waiting. It felt like something had pressed pause on the world. Probably just weather, I muttered to myself. But the sky was clear. Still, I shrugged it off. When you're alone long enough, your brain starts inventing reasons for things. I made coffee, boiled in a dented tin mug, and sat by the creek watching the water slip past stones. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. There was a tension in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. I noticed other things as the day went on. No fresh tracks near the creek, no distant calls of wildlife. Even the fish seemed scarce. By late afternoon, I'd caught nothing, which didn't make sense, not here. I tried to laugh it off. Bad luck, I said out loud, just to hear a voice. The sound felt out of place. That night, I built a bigger fire than usual. By the sixth day, unease had settled into something heavier. Food was running low, not dangerously low, but enough that I started planning my exit. I figured I'd pack up the next morning and hike back to the car. The thought of civilization noise, people, even traffic felt strangely comforting now. That night, I heard something. At first, I thought it was an animal, a branch snapping somewhere in the distance. Then another, slow, uneven. I froze, listening. The sound came again, closer. Probably a kangaroo, I whispered, though I didn't believe it. Kangaroos move with rhythm. This was wrong, too irregular, too deliberate. I grabbed my torch and swept it across the trees. Light cut through trunks and shadows, but revealed nothing. The noise stopped. I stood there for a long time, heart thudding louder than I wanted. Eventually, exhaustion won. I crawled back into the tent, though sleep came in fragments, each one broken by imagined sounds. I broke camp early the next morning. The forest still felt off, but daylight made it easier to ignore. I packed quickly, shouldered my gear, and started the hike out. The trail wasn't much of a trail, just markers I'd made and landmarks I'd memorized. Still, I knew the way. Or at least, I thought I did. About an hour in, I found something that didn't belong. A boot. It lay half buried in the dirt, scuffed and torn, not old enough to be forgotten, not new enough to be freshly lost. Just abandoned. I crouched beside it, turning it over in my hands. There was something dark on the sole, dried. I told myself it was mud. I didn't look too closely. Further along, I found more signs, broken branches, scrapes on tree bark, not natural, not clean. It looked like someone had pushed through the bush in a hurry, not caring what they left behind. A bad feeling settled deeper in my gut. I reached my car just before sunset. Relief hit me first. Seeing it there, exactly where I'd left it, grounded me. The world hadn't changed. Not really. I'd just let my imagination get the better of me. I dropped my pack and laughed under my breath. "You're losing it." The laugh died quickly. The car door was open. Just slightly, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I was sure I'd locked it. I approached slowly, every step cautious. The air felt thick again, like it had deep in the forest. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I reached the door and pulled it open fully. The inside was a mess. Glove box torn out, contents scattered, seats stained with something dark. Not mud. My stomach tightened. "Someone's been here," I whispered. That didn't make sense. This place was remote. No one just stumbled out here. I stepped back, scanning the surroundings. That's when I saw the tracks. They led away from the car, dragging slightly, as if whoever made them had been struggling to walk. I swallowed hard. For the first time, the thought crossed my mind something was very wrong. I didn't waste time. I grabbed what I could salvage, checked the engine, it still worked, and threw my gear into the back. The sun was dipping fast, shadows stretching long across the ground. I told myself I'd drive straight to the nearest town, get answers, get help, get back to normal. The engine turned over with a rough cough, then steadied. "Good," I muttered, gripping the wheel. As I pulled onto the dirt track, I glanced in the rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fading light. A shape just beyond the tree line, standing still, watching. I slowed the car slightly, squinting to see better. The shape didn't move, didn't wave, didn't call out. It just stood there. Something about it made my chest tighten. A warning, deep and instinctive. "Not my problem," I said, under my breath. I pressed the accelerator. As the car rolled forward, I looked back once more. The figure was closer. I hadn't seen it move. That's when the silence finally made sense. And for the first time, a thought surfaced, one I couldn't push away. What if I hadn't escaped the world for a few days? What if the world had changed while I was gone? I didn't stop driving. The dirt track stretched ahead in a thin, winding line, barely visible as dusk settled into something darker. My headlights cut through the trees in narrow beams, turning trunks into flickering shadows that seemed to move even when they didn't. I kept checking the rear-view mirror. Nothing. No figure, no movement, just darkness swallowing the road behind me. "Get a grip," I muttered, though my hands were tight on the wheel. The forest eventually thinned, giving way to open stretches of scrubland. The transition should have felt like relief. Instead, it only made the emptiness more obvious. No distant headlights. No signs of life. Just a long road and the hum of the engine beneath me. I'd expected anything by now. A passing car, a farmhouse with lights on, even a radio signal once I got close enough. But the radio gave me nothing. Just static. I turned the dial slowly, scanning every frequency. News stations, music channels, emergency broadcasts. Dead air. The silence felt deliberate, like the world had gone quiet on purpose. "Okay," I said, louder this time. "Maybe there's a blackout." It sounded reasonable. Power grids fail. Communications drop. It happens. But not everywhere. Not like this. I drove faster. About an hour later, I saw the first sign that things were worse than I'd imagined. A car sat crooked across the road ahead, one door hanging open. Its headlights were off, but the interior light still glowed faintly, casting a weak yellow spill onto the dirt. I slowed, my pulse picking up again. Great, I muttered. Just great. I pulled up about 20 meters back, leaving the engine running. The road was too narrow to pass without moving it. For a moment, I considered turning around, finding another route. But I knew these roads. There weren't many options. Just check it, I told myself. I stepped out of my car, the cool air brushing against my skin. The silence hit me again, immediately heavy, unnatural. Even my footsteps sounded too loud as I approached. "Hello?" I called out. No response. The open door creaked slightly in the breeze. I moved closer, peering inside. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat too. But the back seat, I stopped breathing for a second. There was blood. Not just a stain, a smear, dragged across the fabric, dark and thick. It trailed from one side of the seat to the other, then down toward the footwell. Something had happened here. Something violent. I stepped back instinctively, my eyes scanning the ground. More marks, scuffs, drag lines leading off the road and into the bush. My stomach turned. "Don't follow that," I whispered. Every instinct told me to get back in the car and leave. So I did. I reversed carefully, then edged around the abandoned vehicle, tires crunching over loose gravel. My eyes flicked constantly between the road ahead and the mirrors. Still nothing. No movement. No people. It felt wrong. Completely wrong. Even if something bad had happened, an accident, an attack, there should have been someone. Emergency services, witnesses, something. Instead, it was like everyone had vanished. The town came into view just before midnight. A small place. The kind with one main street, a petrol station, a pub, and not much else. I'd passed through it plenty of times before. It was never busy, but it was never like this either. Dark. Every building was unlit. No streetlights, no signs, nothing. I slowed as I approached, unease creeping back stronger than before. "This doesn't make sense," I said under my breath. I pulled into the main street and stopped. The silence here was even worse than in the forest. At least out there, it felt natural at first. Here, it felt like something had been ripped away. Car doors stood open. A shopping trolley lay on its side near the curb. The front window of a small convenience store was shattered, glass scattered across the pavement. I stepped out slowly, my senses on edge. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed faintly, bouncing off empty buildings. No answer. I walked toward the petrol station first. It was the most practical choice. Fuel, supplies, maybe a working phone. The automatic doors were stuck half open. Inside, the place was trashed. Shelves knocked over, items scattered across the floor. It looked less like a robbery and more like chaos had simply erupted. I moved cautiously through the aisles. "Anyone here?" I tried again. Still nothing. I reached the counter. The register was open, empty. Behind it, a dark smear ran along the wall, ending near a door marked "Staff Only." I stared at it for a long moment. Then the sound came, a low, dragging noise. From the back room, I froze. There it was again, slow, uneven movement, like something struggling to walk. My chest tightened. "Hello?" I called, quieter this time. The noise stopped. Silence returned, thicker than before. I took a step back, then another. "Not worth it," I whispered. Whatever was in that room, I didn't want to find out. I turned and headed for the exit, forcing myself not to run. I almost made it to the car. The sound came again, but this time it wasn't behind me. It was to my left. I turned my head slowly. Something stood at the edge of the street, half hidden in shadow. A person. At least, it had been. Its posture was wrong, slumped forward, head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its clothes were torn, stained dark in places I didn't want to examine too closely. "Hey!" I called out, instinct kicking in. "Are you okay?" The figure didn't respond. It just stood there. Then, slowly, it took a step forward. The movement was jerky, uncoordinated. Not injured, not drunk. Wrong. A cold realization began to form, piecing together everything I'd seen. The blood, the silence, the abandoned cars. "No," I said under my breath. The figure took another step. Its face caught the edge of the light. My stomach dropped. The skin was pale, stretched tight in places, torn in others. One eye clouded over completely. The mouth hung slightly open, as if it had forgotten how to close. And then it made a sound. A low, broken groan. Every instinct in my body screamed at once. I backed toward the car, heart hammering. "Stay back," I said, though my voice shook. It didn't listen. It kept coming. Slow. Relentless. Behind it, more shapes began to emerge from the darkness. One. Then two. Then several. Moving the same way. Drawn by something. By me. "Get in the car," I told myself. I didn't need to say it twice. I turned, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. The engine roared as I slammed my foot on the accelerator, tires spinning briefly before catching. As the car shot forward, I glanced in the mirror. They were still there, still coming. But they weren't running. They didn't need to. I drove without direction for a while, my thoughts racing faster than the car. There was no denying it now. Whatever had happened while I was out there, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a blackout. It was something worse. Something that turned people into... I gripped the wheel tighter. "Don't say it," I muttered. But the word was already there, waiting. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Not in that town, not anywhere like it. Because if even a small place like that had fallen, what did that mean for everything else? I drove until the fuel gauge dipped lower than I liked. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a narrow ribbon cutting through dark farmland and scattered bush. My headlights carved out a tunnel of visibility. But beyond that, nothing. No movement, no lights. No signs that the world was still functioning anywhere beyond the reach of my car. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. I kept replaying what I'd seen in the town. The way they moved. The way they didn't react to my voice, only to my presence. That sound they made, like something caught between breathing and breaking. I'd never believed in any of it. Not really. Zombies were something from movies, late-night TV, things you laughed about with friends. Not something you saw walking toward you in the dark. Focus, I told myself. Panic wouldn't help. Thinking would. They were slow. That was something. Slow and uncoordinated. That meant distance was safety for now, at least. But there had been more than one. Enough to make the town feel overrun, which meant it had spread. How far? I didn't know. The fuel light blinked on. I swore under my breath. Of course. I scanned the road ahead, hoping for a sign, anything that might indicate another town, a service station, somewhere I could refuel without stepping into another nightmare. A few kilometers later, I got lucky. A sign loomed on the roadside, half reflective in my headlights. Service station, 5 kilometers. I exhaled slowly. Okay, good. 5 kilometers felt like nothing, unless the place looked like the last one. It came into view gradually. A wide, open lot, 2 fuel pumps beneath a metal awning, a small building off to the side. The lights were out, but that wasn't surprising anymore. What mattered was this: no movement. I slowed the car, rolling in cautiously. My headlights swept across the area: empty concrete, scattered debris, one parked ute near the building. No figures. No dragging footsteps. Nothing. "Please stay that way," I muttered. I pulled up beside a pump and killed the engine. The silence rushed in immediately. I sat there for a moment, listening. Still nothing. The fuel pump was dead. I tried it twice, just in case. No power, no hum of electricity, no click of the mechanism. "Right," I said quietly. That meant I'd have to do this the hard way. I grabbed a small jerry can from the back, something I always brought on trips like this, and headed toward the ute. If I was lucky, it might still have fuel in it. The air felt colder outside the car. Or maybe that was just me. Every step toward the ute felt heavier than it should have. I kept glancing around, expecting something to move at the edge of my vision. Nothing did. I reached the vehicle and checked inside. Keys still in the ignition. "Lucky," I whispered. I opened the fuel cap, then started siphoning what I could into the jerry can. The process was slow, awkward, and louder than I liked. Every small noise seemed amplified in the stillness. Halfway through, I froze. A sound, not close, but not far either. A faint scraping, like something brushing against metal. I straightened slowly, listening. There it was, again. From the building. I turned my head, eyes locking onto the dark windows. "Probably nothing," I said under my breath. But I didn't believe it. I capped the jerry can quickly, deciding it was enough for now. I could come back for more if it was safe. As I turned toward my car, the sound came again, louder this time, followed by a soft thud. Something inside the building had moved. I should have left. Every instinct told me to get in the car, pour the fuel, and drive. Instead, I hesitated. There could be supplies in there, food, water, maybe even answers. Or someone. The thought of another living person hit me harder than I expected. "Just a quick look," I whispered. I approached the building slowly, keeping my footsteps light. The front door was slightly ajar, the glass cracked, but not shattered. I pushed it open carefully. It creaked. Loud. Too loud. I winced and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Rotting food. Stale air. Something else underneath it. Something metallic and sour. I forced myself to keep moving. The place was dim, lit only by my torch. Shelves were partially stocked, though many items had been knocked over or taken. It wasn't as chaotic as the last station, but it wasn't untouched either. "Hello?" I called softly. Silence. I moved deeper into the store, scanning quickly. Bottled water, packaged food, things I could use. The sound came again. From the back. Same place as before. My chest tightened. "Anyone there?" I tried again. A pause. Then, a voice. "Help." I froze. It was faint, hoarse, but unmistakably human. Relief surged through me. "Hey," I said, louder now. I moved toward the back room quickly, pushing the door open. A man lay on the floor, propped awkwardly against a wall. His clothes were dirty, torn in places. His face pale, slick with sweat. "Oh, thank God," he rasped. I knelt beside him immediately. "Hey, it's okay. I've got you." Up close, I saw the wound. A bite on his arm. Deep. Angry. My relief faltered. What happened? I asked, though I already knew. They came out of nowhere, he said, his voice shaking. People just started attacking, biting. His eyes locked onto mine. You've seen them. It wasn't a question. I nodded slowly. He swallowed hard. You have to go, he said. I'm not leaving you, I replied. Yes, you are, he snapped weakly. You don't understand. I can help you. No, his voice broke, then dropped again. It's too late. I hesitated. Every instinct told me he was right, but leaving him felt wrong. I can get you to a hospital, I said, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. He gave a weak, almost sad laugh. There is no hospital, he whispered. The room fell quiet. Then he grabbed my wrist, harder than I expected. You listen to me, he said, his eyes suddenly sharp. If they bite you, you don't get sick. I frowned. What do you mean? You don't change slowly, he said, his grip tightening. It happens fast, faster than you think. My chest tightened. How fast? He didn't answer right away. Instead, his expression shifted. Pain. Then something else. Something worse. Go, he said again, more urgently now. Please. I tried to pull my hand free. His grip tightened further. Too strong. Hey. His body jerked. A sharp, unnatural movement. His breathing changed ragged, uneven. Go, he shouted, his voice no longer entirely his own. I didn't argue. I yanked my hand free and stumbled backward, heart pounding. His head snapped upward. The look in his eyes. It wasn't him anymore. I ran. I didn't look back. I burst through the front door, sprinted to the car, and threw myself inside. My hands fumbled with the keys for a second, before the engine roared to life. As I pulled away, I caught a glimpse of the doorway in my headlights. He stood there, waiting. I didn't stop until the station disappeared behind me. My breathing was ragged, my thoughts spinning. It happens fast, I whispered. Too fast. That meant anyone bitten. I shook my head, gripping the wheel tighter. There wasn't time to process it. Not now. A few minutes later, something else caught my attention. A flicker. In the distance. I squinted. Light. Not fire. Not headlights. Something steady. Deliberate. Hope stirred again, cautious this time. Maybe there were others. Maybe someone had figured this out. Maybe. I leaned forward slightly, focusing on it. Then I saw what the light was attached to. A tower. And beneath it, movement. A lot of it. My stomach dropped. I slowed the car long before I reached the tower. Something about the way they moved, clustered, uneven, yet drawn together, made it impossible to mistake what I was looking at. Dozens of them, maybe more, circling the base like moths around a flame. Except there was no flame. Just a steady white light mounted high above, flickering occasionally, but refusing to die completely. What are you doing there? I murmured. They weren't wandering aimlessly like the ones in town. These things were focused. Their movements all angled toward the same point, bodies pressing forward in slow, relentless waves. Some stumbled over others, collapsing and rising again without hesitation. It wasn't random. They were gathering. I pulled the car off the road and killed the engine, watching from a distance. The silence returned immediately, but it felt different now, charged, like the air before a storm. The light flickered again, and for a brief moment I thought I saw something move near its base. Something faster. Alive. I debated with myself for longer than I'd like to admit. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, keep driving, put as much distance between myself and that crowd as possible. But another thought pushed back harder. If someone was alive out there, if they'd found a way to hold out this long, they might have answers. And I was running low on those. Just a closer look, I said quietly. I left the car where it was and grabbed what I could use as a weapon, a tire iron from the back. It wasn't much, but it felt better than empty hands. Then I started forward. The closer I got, the clearer it became. The tower wasn't just a tower, it was a communications mast, old, rusted in places, but still standing. The light was mounted halfway up, casting a weak glow over the area below. And below, they were everywhere. Dozens, like I'd thought, maybe more, pressed tightly together, reaching upward, clawing at the metal supports, as if trying to climb. Their movements made a low, constant noise. Not quite a groan, not quite a hiss, just a collective, broken sound that filled the air. I stayed low, keeping to the shadows, circling around the edge of the clearing. That's when I saw it. A small structure at the base of the tower, a maintenance shed. The door was closed, and something inside it moved. Hope is a dangerous thing. It makes you take risks you'd normally avoid, makes you believe in outcomes that aren't guaranteed. I crept closer, keeping my distance from the edge of the horde. They didn't seem to notice me, not yet. Their attention was fixed entirely on the tower, or whatever was in that shed. "Hey," I whispered, crouching near the outer wall. "Can you hear me?" No response. I tried again, a little louder. "Hey!" This time, something shifted inside, a shadow crossing the small, dirt-streaked window. My heart jumped. "Stay quiet," I added quickly. I'm not one of them." A pause. Then the door cracked open just enough for a face to appear. A woman, mid-30s maybe, dirt smeared across her skin, eyes sharp and alert. She looked me over quickly. "How did you get here?" she asked in a low voice. "Car," I replied, "back on the road." Her gaze flicked past me toward the distant silhouette of it. "You're alone?" I nodded. She studied me for another second, then opened the door a little wider. "Get in," she said. I didn't hesitate. The shed was cramped but secure. Metal walls, reinforced door, a single narrow window. It smelled faintly of oil and sweat, but it was safe, or as close to safe as anything felt anymore. There were supplies stacked along one wall, water containers, canned food, a few tools, and a radio. "You've got that working?" I asked, nodding toward it. "Sometimes," she said, "mostly static." I exhaled. "Same everywhere else, then?" She nodded, then leaned against the wall, keeping her eyes on me. "You've been out there?" she asked. "Camping," I said. "Didn't know anything was wrong until a couple hours ago." Her expression shifted slightly. "Then you're lucky," she said. "Lucky?" I echoed. "You missed the start of it," she replied. "Trust me, that's a good thing." I thought about the man in the station, the bite, the way he'd changed. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I'm starting to realize that." We talked in low voices. Her name was Erin. She'd been working at a nearby property when everything went bad. Said it started fast, people getting sick, then violent, then something else entirely. No warning, no clear cause. "It spread through bites," she said. "Blood, maybe. I don't know. But once someone's infected, they turn." I finished. She nodded. "Fast." I swallowed. "I saw that." She studied me again, as if measuring something. "You don't look bitten," she said. I'm not. Good, she replied simply. A loud clang echoed from outside. We both froze. Something had hit the shed. Then another. The noise spread quickly, drawing attention. They've noticed, Aaron whispered. The low, constant sound outside began to shift more movement, more direction, toward us. Why were they at the tower? I asked quickly. Her jaw tightened. The light, she said. I turned it on. I blinked. You what? I needed a signal, she replied. Something visible from a distance. Thought maybe someone would see it. I glanced toward the door as another impact rattled it. They saw it, I said. Yeah, she replied grimly. Wrong kind of someone. The banging grew louder. More bodies pressed against the walls, drawn by the noise, the movement. Us. They'll break through eventually, I said. Aaron nodded. Not right away. This place is reinforced. But, yeah. Then we don't wait. She looked at me. You've got a car? Yeah. How far? Couple 100 meters. She hesitated. Another heavy Udar slammed into the door, metal groaning under the strain. Okay, she said. We make a run for it. I tightened my grip on the tire iron. On your mark. We threw the door open together. Chaos hit instantly. The nearest ones turned toward us, their movements snapping into focus the moment we appeared. Go! Aaron shouted. We ran. The ground felt uneven beneath my feet, every step a risk. I could hear them behind us, dragging, stumbling, but relentless. One got too close. I swung the tire iron without thinking. It connected with a sickening crack, sending the thing collapsing to the ground. Don't stop! Aaron yelled. I didn't. The car came into view like a lifeline. I fumbled with the keys as we reached it, hands shaking just enough to slow me down. Hurry, she urged. I yanked the door open, both of us diving inside. The engine roared to life. And then, a shape slammed against the windshield. I flinched, heart jumping into my throat. It slid off slowly, leaving a smear behind. I didn't wait. I hit the accelerator. We tore down the road, leaving the tower and the swarm behind us. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence returned, but it felt different now. Not empty. Shared. Finally, Aaron broke it. You came back for someone you didn't even know, she said. I kept my eyes on the road. Didn't feel right leaving you. She nodded slowly. Most people wouldn't have risked it. I shrugged faintly. Guess I didn't know enough to be scared yet. That earned a quiet, humorless laugh. You will, she said. I glanced at her briefly. Yeah, I replied. I think I already am. Ahead, the road stretched into darkness again. But this time, I wasn't alone. And somehow, that made everything both better and a whole lot more complicated. We didn't stop driving until the sky began to lighten. Dawn came slowly, washing the horizon in pale gray before bleeding into soft orange. It should have been comforting. A reminder that the world still turned, that something normal remained. But even in daylight, nothing felt right. The roads were still empty. The silence still stretched too far, and the world still looked abandoned. Erin had dozed off at some point, her head resting against the window, exhaustion finally winning over adrenaline. I envied that. Sleep hadn't come easily to me since I'd left the forest. Every time I blinked too long, I saw that man again, the way he changed, the speed of it. It happens fast. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Yeah, I muttered. I noticed. We found the place by accident. A farmhouse, set back from the road, surrounded by open land and a weathered fence line. It looked untouched. No broken windows, no scattered debris, no obvious signs of struggle. Could be clear, I said quietly. Aaron stirred beside me. Or it could look clear. Yeah, I agreed. I slowed the car, pulling up a short distance away. We check it carefully, she said, already more alert now. In and out. I nodded. The approach felt too easy. No movement, no sounds, just the crunch of gravel beneath our boots and the faint rustle of wind through dry grass. The front door was closed, unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, bracing for the worst. Nothing lunged at us. No sudden movement. Just stillness. The house smelled normal. Dust, old wood, something faintly stale, but nothing like the rot I'd come to expect. Clear? I whispered. Aaron moved past me, checking rooms with quick, practiced glances. Clear, she confirmed. Relief settled in, cautious, but real. We stayed. Not because it felt safe nothing did anymore, but because it felt safer. We secured the doors, covered the windows as best we could, and took stock of what was inside. There was food, water, even a generator out back, though it needed fuel. It was the closest thing to a refuge either of us had seen. This could work, I said. For a while, Aaron replied. She didn't sound convinced. The first day passed quietly. No signs of movement outside. No distant sounds of the infected. Just wind and the occasional creak of the house settling. It should have been a good sign. Instead, it felt wrong. Where are they? I asked at one point. Erin looked out the window, her brow furrowed. They're out there, she said. They don't just disappear. Then why haven't we seen any? She didn't answer right away. I don't know, she admitted. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence pressed in again, heavier than before. I got up and moved through the house quietly, checking doors, windows, the perimeter. Everything was still secure, still untouched, still wrong. I stepped out onto the porch, scanning the fields beyond. Nothing, just darkness. Then, movement. Far out, near the edge of the property. I squinted, trying to focus. A shape, then another. My chest tightened. They're here, I whispered. But they weren't moving toward the house. They were just standing there. I went back inside quickly, waking Erin. They're outside, I said. She was on her feet instantly, grabbing the nearest weapon. How many? I don't know. A few, maybe more further out. We moved back to the porch together, keeping low. She saw them immediately. Why aren't they moving? I asked. Her expression shifted. That's not right, she said. We watched for a long time. They didn't advance, didn't wander, didn't react to us standing there. They just stayed at the edge of the property, as if held back by something unseen. Maybe they can't see us, I suggested. Erin shook her head slowly. No, that's not it. Then what? She didn't answer. The answer came the next morning. I was in the kitchen when I heard the sound. A low hum, faint but steady. I frowned, following it through the house. It led me outside, to the generator, running. I froze. I didn't turn that on, I said. Erin stepped beside me, her eyes narrowing. Neither did I. We stood there, listening. The hum wasn't loud, but it carried. And beyond it, I noticed something else. Movement. At the edge of the property. More of them now, drawn closer. The realization hit slowly. Then, all at once. The tower, I said. Aaron looked at me. The light drew them in, I continued. Not us, not movement. Her eyes widened slightly. Sound, she said. I nodded. They're not just reacting to sight, I said. They're following noise. The generator hummed behind us, steady and constant. And out in the field, more figures were beginning to gather. We shut it off, Aaron said immediately. I moved toward it, pulling the cord. The engine sputtered, then died. Silence fell again. We both turned back toward the field. The figures stopped. Not completely, but the pull toward the house weakened. Their movement slowed, less directed. They're losing interest, I said. Aaron nodded. Sound draws them, she repeated. It should have felt like a breakthrough, an advantage. Instead, a different thought crept in. Something colder. Something worse. If that's true, I said, slowly. Aaron looked at me. Then how did they find the tower so fast? Her expression shifted. They didn't just wander into it, I continued. They were already nearby, a lot of them. Maybe it spread faster than we think, she said. Or, I hesitated. Or what? I looked out at the field again, at the one still standing there, waiting. Or they're not as mindless as we thought. The idea hung in the air between us. Uncomfortable. Dangerous. They don't run, Aaron said. They don't think. They gather, I interrupted. They respond to signals, light, sound. She didn't reply, because she knew I was right. That night, we didn't turn the generator back on. We sat in silence, listening to the absence of sound as much as anything else. Out in the darkness, the figures remained. Not advancing, not leaving, just staying. I thought about the forest again. The silence. The absence of birds. The way everything had felt wrong before I ever saw one of them. They didn't just take over, I said quietly. Aaron glanced at me. What do you mean? I swallowed. I think they changed everything around them, I said. The animals, the patterns, the way the world sounds. She frowned. That doesn't make sense. Neither does any of this, I replied. We sat there for a long time, watching, thinking, trying to understand something that didn't want to be understood. Finally, Aaron spoke. So, what now? I looked out into the dark, at the shapes that refused to leave, at a world that had shifted while I was away, becoming something unrecognizable. We stay quiet, I said.